Hi everyone, welcome to another live chat with Polar Bears International. We are coming to you from our brand new EV Tundra Buggy One out here on the shores of Hudson Bay outside of Churchill, Manitoba. This has been my first week on our new Buggy One and it is pretty spectacular. Let me tell you, it is so quiet, it's so smooth, it has zero emission propulsion, so it's much more sustainable than the previous diesel engine we were using, and it has been an absolute joy to be out here surrounded by polar bears. If you've been watching the cams over the, several weeks, but especially the last couple days, you've seen lots of sparring, moms with cubs. We have a sleeping bear just outside us right now. A mom and cub have been walking back and forth. We know there's a few more bears around, so it's been absolutely amazing to share this week with you. And this week, of course, is Polar Bear Week, so it's when we have even more fun than usual with polar bears. So I hope you're looking at social media, checking out our fun clips and information. It's a really great week. I know explore.org is doing a wonderful journey where you can use your snapshots to enter a contest and win a prize. We're also soliciting all your polar bear art. So if you have any polar bear art you do of any kind, including music, anything, please send it to us, and we're going to be celebrating it, particularly at the end of the season. We'll do a big wrap up, but we love seeing that. And the reason we're all here today and that you're tuning in is that we have a very special guest with us. We are absolutely thrilled to welcome animator Aaron Blaise.
Hey everybody.
Oh, thank you so much.
So nice to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys all know any of you that have watched live chats before know Polar Bears International. We're a science-based organization, and we're doing science and research around the world on polar bears, and that's really important for polar bear conservation. But what's also very important for conservation is capturing the hearts of people. And
Correct.
Aaron, that is just one of the most amazing skills you have through what you do. Could you tell everyone a bit about what you do?
Sure. So for those of you that don't know, my name is Aaron Blaise, and I'm an animator. I've been an animator for 38 years, and I was with Disney for 21 of those years, and I worked on films like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, and I directed Brother Bear. And throughout those years, I've learned that creating story is really a gateway into people's hearts. You get them to feel the emotion, you get them to empathize, and what better way to do that than for polar bears to help polar bear conservation than to create stories about polar bears, and that's what I've just finished. Yeah.
Absolutely. We, as conservationists, we really know that people protect what they love.
Yeah.
And I can spit facts and data all day, but that really doesn't help people fall in love with polar bears.
Yeah.
But doing what you do can really
Well, I think it's such a wonderful melding. You know, I can't do what I'm doing without the knowledge that you have. You know, and so I just think it's such a great kind of coming together of our two disciplines.
Art and science together.
Yeah, I love that.
More powerful together. So just a reminder, if anyone has questions, please do send us questions throughout the broadcast.
Yes,
We've got our team looking. I'll be looking at my computer for questions coming in, so do send them. But we are also very grateful and lucky today that the amazing Aaron Blaise is going to give a bit of a drawing lesson.
Sure.
On how do you draw polar bears? You've been drawing polar bears all week, and we've all been amazed at you just, from our perspective, whipping out these beautiful drawings, and we're just watching in awe.
Yeah, well, you know, so much of what I do, you know, when we create animals like the Lion King or Brother Bear or Snow Bear, in my case for the film I just did, I really want to create a character that you can watch and you can go, oh, that's a polar bear, and it feels believable. It's not really, it's a cartoon, but what I'm trying to do is create something that's believable, and that requires being there, watching them, seeing them, and in this case, in real life, and trying to learn their form and how they're put together in their anatomy. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Should I start to draw?
Go ahead. I'll tell people if they want to know. So check out snowbearshort.com.
Yes.
To find out more.
Yeah, if you want to know more about Snow Bear, go to snowbearshort.com, and we've got all kinds of information right there. We're going to be, it's going to be available for on demand in the next few weeks, and then we'll be streaming it free for around the holiday season.
Perfect. Take it away.
So one of the things I think about when I'm drawing polar bears is, first of all, polar bears are very fluid. They're very sleek. And so I like to start with the head. Their heads tend to be kind of long. And I'm going to start kind of loose, too. I tend to be a little bit scribbly. And you'll notice that I'm just going to go right down that back, right down the body, just like that. And their hips tend to stay a little higher than their shoulders. And their head is, like I said, kind of long. And one of the cool things about polar bears that's different than grizzly bears is that, you know, right from the top of their head, right down their nose, is that, you know, it goes right down to their nose. They don't have much of a forehead. They're very sleek. And their nose, there's not much of the, a lot of their nose is covered by fur. It's cold here. And so we got that little mouth right here, and you'll notice that's kind of flat, a little bit flat. It kind of slopes downward a little bit on top. And I'm always saying, even with a cartoon, I'm thinking about anatomy. They've got cheekbones. The cheekbones come back, and they've got really strong muscular jaws. So therefore, there's a lot of muscle on the side of their head. So there, right here, there's a lot of muscle right in here, and they've got fur that kind of comes off the back of the bottom of their chin, right here. And notice we got this kind of sloping kind of shape right here with the whole neck. And there's a little bit of muscle that comes off here. And then we come back to the shoulders, and I'm going to have this guy kind of coming back, big, thick arms. Polar bears have these really strong front legs. Very thick and big feet. They're almost like paddles, right? They're great swimmers. Polar bears are marine mammals. So they're in the water a lot. See that? That big, strong foot. And their claws kind of sit up on top of their fingers, they've got fingers like us, and so their claws kind of sit up on top. I'm going to have this, I want to show the other foot coming kind of forward like this, just like that. I'm going to put that in the shadow, so I'm going to color that in a little bit so it feels like it's going back a little. And if you want to ask me questions, you're welcome to. I can keep drawing like this, but
Okay.
if you've got questions on your side, I can draw and talk.
Okay, great. Yeah, we do have a question from Oso Negro. Where can we see the full Snow Bear movie? Is it a pay-to-view movie? Maybe a little more clarification.
Yeah, so it isn't right now. Right now, we've been showing Snow Bear around different film festivals around the world for the last year. And around Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, which is around the end of November, we're going to be putting it out for online streaming, for pay-per-view. And then around the holiday season, we'll be putting it out for free.
That's great. So people will be able to watch it pretty soon. And it is just such a beautiful movie. We've been so lucky to have you here. We were able to show the movie in the Churchill Theater, and you spent a day with the Churchill kids at the school.
I did. It was such a great time. I love sharing animation with young artists. And to me, I think a lot of adults have, sometimes the adults have lost that magic in seeing animation. Animation, I'm 57, and I still am just mesmerized by animation. It feels like magic to me, and I love that kids still feel that way as well a lot of times. And so when I'm sitting down with the kids and I'm showing them how you can create life and movement with drawings, that's a lot of fun. And so we did a lot of that this week at the school in Churchill, and I made a lot of new friends.
You sure did.
Yes.
Yeah, they were so excited.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been so fascinated to watch you and hear you talk about is the way you look at the structure of the bear, the skeletal structure, the muscles.
Yes.
There are things I see, but I haven't thought about it in that way, and to watch you really pick up on those subtleties in the bears
Yes.
is so incredible. And the way that you call them pencil tests, and when you're testing out how bears walk and everything,
Yes.
it's amazing. Could you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, so much of what we do as animators, we're trying to create an illusion.
Yeah.
I want you to forget that you're looking at drawings on the screen. I want you to fall in love with the character and see their movement, see their acting, see the emotion. And so in order to do that, I need to analyze not just the emotional aspects of what I'm trying to get across, but also just the physicality. How does an animal move? Polar bears are big. They're the biggest carnivore on the planet, land carnivore on the planet. And so they have weight, and so they move in a certain way, and I want to see their flesh move. I want to see their feet hit the ground. I want to see their body react. And so I'm always looking for those little things so that I can get that across in the animation. Because when you do that, then you're creating believability. And believability will let you suspend that disbelief so that you can just sit there and watch and be engrossed and be pulled in. Yeah.
Incredible. So this polar bear has come together pretty darn quickly from my point of view. I know. You talked about how many drawings it took to make Snow Bear, which is an 11-minute film.
It's an 11-minute film, and if you count all the kind of the development drawings and the storyboards and my animation drawings and the effects drawings, it was about 11,000 drawings to make Snow Bear.
Absolutely incredible. And what's a feature-length film then?
A feature-length film, because Snow Bear is only 11 minutes, a feature-length film, when you're talking about all those other pieces of art that go into making a film, on average, we've estimated that it takes about 1 million pieces of art to create a feace-length animated film.
Absolutely incredible. And those are huge teams doing that. And and Snow Bear was all you.
Snow Bear was all me. When I directed Brother Bear, we had a crew of 360 people working on the film. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. A lot of teamwork involved in that.
Lots and lots of teamwork. That's one of the things I love about animation, is that it's a very collaborative art form.
Right, and how was it? So you have worked on so many Disney films, different animals. You're kind of an animal specialist.
Yes.
And then what's the difference between some of the other characters you've done and then the polar bear?
Well, it's interesting because they're very different. Polar bears are different than lions because I animated lions. They're very different than even brown bears because I animated brown bears, and I animated Raja the tiger from Aladdin, which is very different. But there's also a lot of similarities. There's this thing called comparative anatomy where we all have, including humans, we have the same parts that polar bears have, that lions have, that tigers have. We all have the same parts. We're just proportioned differently, and the outside is just kind of skinned a little bit differently. But we all have the same bones in our hand. We have the same bones in our forearm and our upper arm. We have the same muscles. They're just proportioned differently, and they're meant to do different things. And so we as humans, we walk upright. Our rib cage have shaped a little bit differently. Our scapulas have moved to our backs. But we still have those, the polar bears have all those parts. And so that is really interesting to me because I can analyze kind of the way I move and look at the way I'm built. And as long as I kind of shape shift that, I can figure out how the polar bear is supposed to move.
Oh.
Yeah.
How do you know when a drawing's done? As a non-artist, I'm like, to me, I mean, this is
a lot of people ask me that, and it's really, it's a subjective thing. You always run the risk of overworking something. I tend to be impatient, so I'll move on to the next one really quickly.
Okay.
So, but like this one right now, it's pretty much done. Yeah. And so this is the other thing too. I want to just say really quickly. Yeah. When I'm drawing animals, I tend to break them up into 6 different pieces. And so in this case, I start with the head. So there's 1. Then we have the neck right here. That's 2. Then we have the shoulders right here and front legs. So that's the 3rd section. Then we have that rib cage and midsection. So that's 4. Then the pelvic area right here and the back legs. That's 5. And then the tail. In this case, polar bears have that little on the end. But, if I'm drawing a horse or something like that. Now, the reason I think about that is that these are the main masses in the animal. So if I were to turn that polar bear in space, those are the masses that will overlap one another to give the illusion of depth. And it's also very interesting because these have alternating rigidity and flexibility. So if you think about the skull is very rigid, right? So we've got that, it's rigid. Then the next bit is flexible because it's the neck. So there's flexibility there. And then between the scapula, or between the shoulder blades there, the scapula is, the vertebrae, they twist a little bit, but they're basically pretty rigid, right down to the bottom of the rib cage, which is right about in here. And then this section through here, in that midsection of the body, we're flexible again. And then when we get to the pelvic area, it's rigid, and then the tail is flexible. So it goes back and forth, back and forth. And the reason I point that out is because if you're bending a character and moving them around and trying to get poses, you want to remember where it's flexible and where it's rigid. Because sometimes I have young students come to me and say, why does this pose look so weird? And I'll say, well, you're bending it in the wrong place. And so I always point out that rigid, flexible, rigid, flexible, rigid, flexible.
I think I'll always think of polar bears differently a little bit now.
It's interesting, isn't it?
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
Did you go to art school?
I did. I went to the Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. I started there in 1986 and I finished in 1989. At the time I went there, it was only a 3-year school, and I went right from there right into Disney.
I was going to ask, you started at Disney right after that. That's
I did.
Amazing.
Yeah, I actually interned at Disney in 1988, so So even before I finished college, and then I went to college, finished college, and then went back to Disney.
Okay, so for any aspiring artists today, young students,
Yeah.
what might, because the world is probably a little different from
The world is a
80s,
little bit different. You know, there was no such thing as the internet or, you know, social media. There was no computer animation. There was just animating on paper. So there's so many more possibilities nowadays. You know, so many people ask me, you know, how do you feel about paper animation or hand-drawn animation going away? Well, it's not going away. It only goes away if we let it go away. So I think there's so many more possibilities out there. If you want to do CG animation, you can do that. If you want to get your work seen, there's so much social media. There's so many platforms with YouTube and all these wonderful places that you can show your work. It's a wonderful, incredible time to be an animation filmmaker. It's really, really cool. And like I said, you know, with 2D animation, with hand-drawn animation, I know I'm going to keep doing it, so it's going to stay alive as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about going from a realistic drawing to a cartoon or cartoonifying something?
Yes, exactly. So this here is kind of, it's pretty much a realistic bear, right?
Yeah.
So we've got him and all the proportions are pretty realistic. I want to have a character that I can push the expressions. I want to anthropomorphize him a little bit so that we can get some human expression in there. I wanted the character to emote. So let me draw really quickly our snow bear character.
Yeah. Oh.
And so for him, you get a lot of mileage with eyebrows.
Okay.
Believe it or not. So with my snow bear character, I'm going to have his nose up a little high because he doesn't have much of a forehead. So I want to keep him more polar bear. Okay, I'm going to sharpen my pencil really quickly. So I want to keep him somewhat polar bear. So that's where all that study comes in. And, you know, we're very social creatures. So we respond to very subtle changes in expression. And we get expression cues and social cues off of eyebrows, off of mouth shapes, those types of things. And so all it takes is very subtle changes, but you have to keep those expressions simple. You know, there's a reason why we can draw a circle, 2 dots, and just a little U shape on the face, and we see a happy face, right?
Sure, yeah.
And you can flip that mouth over, and then it's upset. So we respond to those cues, those icons, and so I try to keep my expressions in my characters that simple. So here, I have his mouth coming up. Now it's going around the shape of his snout, but it's still a very simple shape coming up right here. And all of a sudden, he's a happy bear. I'm going to bring his mouth down. He's got teeth. You know, polar bears have big teeth, so I'm going to give him his teeth. His lip coming down. And I'm going to think about it like a little bit of a shadow. You know, that snout is coming out, so there's a shadow going across the inside of his mouth. And then the bottom part of his jaw coming down. So now all of a sudden we've got a polar bear snout. Okay, so now we've got a smile. Now we want eyes. And polar bears, you know, and bears in general, they have kind of small eyes. I'm going to make his eyes a little bit bigger because I want to have him emote. And it's interesting, you know, I notice it here quite a bit as I'm photographing. You can see the whites of the polar bear's eyes. You can see where they're looking. You know, they're looking around like this, and that to me is really interesting because it adds. When you can see the whites of a character's eye, it adds a little bit of expression. So I'm going to just give him a little bit pushed cartoony eyes, but he's still kind of in a believable world, right? And now this is where I get a lot of mileage of these eyebrows. Polar bears, they do have like a brow mass, a muscle, you know, and so I'm just pushing it a little bit and putting little eyebrows on there because that's probably the most anthropomorphic part that I do right there is adding those eyebrows because it really does add expression. And then, you know, they've got this fur that comes off the bottom of their chin down their neck. And now polar bears, because of the cold, you know, they don't have big ears, you know, they're susceptible to the cold in that way. So they've got these nice fur covered ears that kind of sit back here, it's like so. A nice thick necks. So that's how I think about those expressions. And so if I want to change, and then he's got nostrils too. Don't want to forget his nostrils. And so there you go there. There's a little expression right there. But you can also, just once again, thinking about those simple expressions. Now that I've established, I've shown you guys how I think about his mouth shapes. I can be very simple. Watch this. Just very simple right there. It still feels like he has a muzzle, but then I can just bring that brow down very simply. You've got a kind of an angry little bear. Pull his ears back. And so I'm always thinking in these very simple terms when I'm animating my characters. Yeah.
So yesterday was the first day you'd ever seen a wild polar bear.
Yes.
So how are you so good at drawing polar bears
Yeah.
before you created Snow Bear before coming here?
Well, I saw a couple of bears in various zoos
Sure.
around the country. They weren't in great shape. They're zoo animals, and so they don't get the movement that wild polar bears do, and I kind of took that into consideration. I watch a lot of documentaries. That to me, I love watching documentaries anyway. Even when I was a kid, I'd watch the Discovery Channel, or I'd watch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. It was my favorite show with Marlon Perkins. And so I watched as many documentaries as I could find on polar bears, and I would draw from the screen. I'd sit in my living room and watch the film or watch the show, and just sit there and draw. And I would get as much information as I could from that. Nothing beats being here in the wild, and so being here now, even though I've watched all of those documentaries, I'm seeing things that I didn't see before, and it's changing the way that I'm thinking about polar bears even now.
Love
Yeah.
it. Well, we're so happy you're able to come here. We've got some questions that have rolled in.
Sure.
And we want to show some of your other pictures
Yes.
too. Maybe we can do that.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do that. So, I went to the zoo in Winnipeg
Yes.
a couple of days ago. They've got a wonderful zoo exhibit where you can go through a glass tunnel and see the polar bears swimming around the glass.
amazing.
And so they kept swimming down around me, and my business partner Nick Birch, who's with me, and we just had this wonderful time just being surrounded by polar bears all around us. And I sat down and just sketched them, and so that's what these are here. And they are incredibly good swimmers.
They are.
They're
Yes.
great, and they're just so comfortable in the water. And so, these look like messy drawings, but it's about me sitting there and jotting down this information. And what I'm doing when I do this, and or any other artist, or if you out there want to sit and watch and draw, you're recording, you're hyper aware, you're looking, you're observing, and you're recording all that three-dimensional information in front of you so that you can go away and pull from what I call your visual library. You're building your visual library. And so the more I observe, the more I can draw them out of my mind, from my mind. So many people ask me, how do you draw these things from out of your head? Well, it comes from practice. If you want to be a great artist, or great anything, if you want to be a great musician, you play that instrument over and over again. If you want to be great at sports, if you want to play great baseball, great hockey, you play a lot of hockey. Well, as an artist, I do a lot of art, and do a lot of observation. So these are, all the bears that we saw at the zoo. But then we came to Churchill. And our first couple of days, we didn't necessarily see bears at first because we just came out yesterday out on the Tundra buggy. But I was really fascinated by the landscape. It's very dramatic here. It's really, really cool. And so I was, I've got polar bears in my mind. So I went out and drew some of the landscape and then added polar bears. And it was a lot of fun that way. But, I was determined, coming here. I've been wanting to come here since I was a little boy, and so I'm determined to fill this sketchbook, and so that's what I'm doing here.
You are well on your way.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing. This is just in the last few days. It's been less than a week, and look, wow.
Yeah.
Sparring, yeah.
Yeah, that we really did see. This was all from yesterday. So these are all bears that we saw since we've been out here.
The movement that you show in your art is so striking. It's so realistic.
Yeah, that's something I try to get across, and this comes from the animation side of me. And, I try to find this line of action. We're always looking for the line of action, then building the character on that line of action so that you get the eye to flow through that pose. Yeah. So like here, you'll see there's a line of action that kind of swoops down through this drawing. And so he comes down and it comes down this way. And you can notice that I purposely had it flow right into this bear as well. So you get this kind of fluid eye movement through the drawing. There we go.
All right,
Yeah.
let's take a few questions, and then I think we might talk about cubs for a minute.
Yes.
So we did have a question from Michelle Wasserman. So she's asking, in Snow Bear, the Arctic landscape is based on Baffin Island. How does the landscape around Churchill compare to the landscape that you created for your film?
It's completely opposite.
Yeah.
So Baffin Island is big and lots of cliffs and giant glaciers and all kinds of stuff, which is really, really cool. Churchill is the opposite of that, but it's still just as striking, striking and just as cool. It's completely flat, but there's really incredible, beautiful rock formations that are polished and kind of scraped from the glacial cover that they had 10,000 years ago. So there's these really neat kind of shaped rocks, incredibly almost like bonsai trees that are stunted by the harsh weather that, from the wind, they're called flag trees because they kind of grow in one direction, away from with the wind. Those, to me, it's almost like calligraphy, three-dimensional calligraphy on the horizon, and I love drawing that. So that's the big difference. I chose, before I came here, I didn't know much about the landscape. As I was creating Snow Bear, I wanted to have big, dramatic ice flows and rocks and mountains and things like that, which is why I went to Baffin Island. Well, I studied Baffin. I didn't go to Baffin Island, and put that into the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely stunning. So a question from Joey Welsh. When in the field, how do you choose a pose to sketch when the subject is always moving?
Well, that's the thing. So first of all, I do my homework before going out. That's one of the number one questions I get. I understand the anatomy, I understand the proportions, I do all that study and homework before I come out. So coming out here, I already know how to draw polar bears because I've drawn at least 11,000 of them.
At least.
And so I know that ahead of time so that when I see the animal moving in front of me, I can get a sense of the pose, like these animals right here that are wrestling back and forth right here. I can get, because we were watching them wrestle out there, and I just kind of quickly laid down that gesture very, very, very fast and got kind of a sense of what they were doing. Then I dive into the knowledge that I have, that visual library that I talk about, that I've built up over the years, and I fill in the gaps.
Oh.
That's how I do it.
One more question, and let's draw another thing.
Yeah.
So, Bird the Bear, how do you think about drawing fur, and especially with a white polar bear?
Yeah, so with fur, you don't want to draw every single hair. You want to draw masses of fur. I tend to draw, a lot with polar bears in particular. Along their back, the fur tends to grow off of them, obviously, so you might get some smooth lines along the back, but then under the belly and along the backs of the arms, you get fur that breaks up, and so I might get a little rough in there. And, when they bend their arm off their elbow, you might get a few fur breaks in there, but I've tried to find kind of tasteful areas where I can indicate fur, but I definitely don't draw every single hair, because that could just be crazy. So I just try to find those little tasteful areas to create fur.
Makes sense. So one of the things I thought I thought everything was interesting, but the size references that you create to kind of keep things consistent.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that in terms of moms and cubs with polar bears, because at the end of Snow Bear, during the credits, you have some just sweet little cubs you're showing there. How do you kind of approach those sizes and drawing them differently?
Well, one of the things that's very interesting, there's a reason why when we see a baby, a human baby, a puppy, a baby bear, we go, "Aw." We are hardwired to respond to cute proportions, and there is a specific proportion that we are hardwired to respond to. If you look at a human baby, if you look at a puppy, if you look at a kitten, if you look at a baby bear, they all have the same proportions, which is really interesting. And that's why we respond to that, and they have what's called cute proportions. And those cute proportions tend to be, they have a larger head in comparison to their body.
Yeah.
Okay. And a larger cranium compared to the rest of their head, So if you look at a baby polar bear, and then their features tend to be a little smaller and more delicate. So like a baby polar bear might have. Now I'm drawing a little cartoony one.
Of course, yeah.
But he's going to have a smaller snout right here. a little nose. Those eyes, they tend to be down lower, set on their head, and a little further apart, and a little bigger. A little scruffy fur on top.
It's already cute. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See?
What is that? Yeah.
Little
That's
mouth.
wild.
See the little mouth? And you can set those ears down low. Nice big chunky cheeks. Maybe a little bit of his eye right here. But if you look at a human baby, human babies have these little, our little ears here, and a little nose, a little mouth, those eyes kind of set. Maybe a little hair. You see how those proportions are similar?
Yeah.
Because we are hardwired to respond to those cute proportions. And so all babies have the same proportions. All mammal babies, basically.
Right.
But even, some birds and even whales and things like that, which are mammals, we have those same proportions because we're hardwired to respond to them.
Yeah. It works.
Yeah, when you see a kitten, you want to take it home and you want to take care of it.
Oh,
It's
totally.
that nurturing response that it triggers. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So we have seen a few moms with a cub around here in the last couple of days.
Yes.
How would you go about comparing their sizes in your drawings, or are you really looking at specific targets on body compared to the cubs?
Well, I'm obviously cubs come in all shapes and sizes, right? You've got newborns, and then you've got yearlings that are about ready to get kicked out of the, So and all the sizes in between. So I'm always looking at what is that proportion between the mother and the cub. I'm obviously to get an emotional response, I like to push the cubs a little younger.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you've got a mom, let's say this mom is sitting here and she's looking around, and remember I was talking about those 6 parts of the body.
Yes.
There's that head. I'm going to draw this very quickly. There's her head looking up, and I'm going to overlap those parts. So now there's the neck coming down, like so, and then here's the shoulders. Right here, and her feet. And that belly. Remember I was saying that everything overlaps there. Mm-hmm. So there's a mom standing there. Now, maybe she sees that maybe there's a male off in the distance, right? And so that maybe the cub is here, hiding behind her. And so once again, I'm thinking about that the proportion to the body. He might be. I'm going to draw this one maybe a little more realistic. So his little snout is up a little higher on his face than the one that I drew. And he's sitting here, huh? He's got his little ears up. And he's hiding behind her. But his little paws his legs are gonna be a little shorter, a little stumpier. The smaller feet. Maybe he's hiding back behind her. So I'm always thinking about, I want it, and maybe he's got a little brother right here standing behind him. He's got his paws on top of him. So yeah, I always think about, getting those proportions so that they're cute, and we, especially for cubs, so that we can respond to that. Right there. There she is.
Oh yeah, it's a good mom.
She's sniffing.
She's sniffing.
Yeah.
Does your hand ever get tired?
Nope.
Amazing.
But look at that. I get lots of graphite on my hands.
Sure.
Yep,
Yeah.
from drawing. I'm a lefty. Well, even righties, when they're drawing like this, they get You know, it's from doing this all the time, drawing, and then you get the graphite on your hand.
Unavoidable.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely amazing. I wanted to, if we have the little clip from Snow Bear, to talk a bit about the emotional side, how you're able to capture so much emotion in what you do.
Yes.
So we're gonna play that while you finish this up, because I just
no,
think
go for it. Yeah, go for it.
It's just so striking. I mean, the clip gets me. Like I said yesterday, I've seen it so many times, but.
So,
Yes.
that scene in particular, when you watch the film, I hope you're crying at that point. It's meant to be very emotional, and so it's, you know, we don't, you know, if we all of us have gone out. If you live in an area that has snow, you go out and you make a snowman, and when spring comes, it melts, and c'est la vie. With this film, I wanted the audience to feel like he's really invested in this snow bear. He really has made a friend. This is his companion. And so when that snow bear melts, I want the audience to feel his emotion. When I'm animating a shot like that has emotion like that, I need to make it real to myself. I immerse myself into his mind. It's all about empathy. I want to feel what my character is feeling so that I can animate those emotions and put them on the screen. I want to feel the loss that he's going through. I put myself in a place where maybe I've felt loss, where I've gone through the pain of losing somebody and feeling alone and feeling that sense of when you lose somebody. And so when I do that, I think it makes the animation a lot more believable, and the audience can then get behind the character. They can feel what the character's feeling, and hopefully, if I've done my job right, you're going to cry, but you're also going to laugh when he's feeling joy. You're going to feel happy when he comes back around again. You're going to feel all the emotions that I'm hoping that you should feel when you watch the film.
Oh,
yeah.
The power of your art. Oh, okay. I've got a few more questions for you. Michelle is asking, do you have a favorite animal that you draw?
You know, I get that a lot. I love all animals. Now, I do have some favorites that I like to draw. Obviously, I love to draw polar bears. I love bears in general. They're just a really fun animal to draw. They're big, they're dramatic, they're strong. They're kind of, they're similar to us in many ways. I love drawing a lot of African wildlife. I've always been drawn to African wildlife. I love drawing elephants, lions, big cats, leopards, cheetahs, those types of things. But big cats in general, you know, North American big game as well. Big dramatic animals, but I'm not above drawing, you know, I love drawing hummingbirds. I love drawing insects. So, you know, it's a lot of different things I like to draw, but I do love drawing those big dramatic animals.
Oh, wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
They're so fun. This is a more specific technical question.
Sure.
From maybe Zenleo is their name. What was the white pen that you've used? They must have
Yes,
seen that
I've
in
got
your previous-
many different types. Lately, what I've been using, this is Artistro pens, and they come in a pack of 5, and different sizes. So I've got, look at this thing. I've got this pen right here.
That's a big boy.
I just use this. This is like a big, look at that thing. It's giant. All the way down to a super fine tip. And so you get this wonderful pack. It's Artistro, and they're water-based acrylic pens. They're really, really cool. I also use Jelly Roll white pens and all kinds of, or just white gouache, which is a opaque watercolor. Yeah.
Okay. Tools of the trade.
Yeah.
Would you have any tips for someone wanting to make a coloring book about Arctic animals, since the animals are white on white?
Well, do your homework. And, you know, people say, you know, how do you draw an animal that's white on white? It's, unless you have something completely blown out, completely white, there is no white on white. You know, even sitting here, we see a lot of white snow out there. It only seems white because everything around it is darker. But if we separate that color out and look at it against true white, we'll see that that white snow that we're looking at is actually kind of gray. It's reflecting the color of the sky, and it's kind of dark compared to like true white. So it really comes down to what color do you put around it, what kind of darkness or lightness do you put around it. So yeah, you can still do a coloring book with Arctic animals.
Absolutely. And I will say, too, at this time of year especially, a lot of these polar bears look a little more butter yellow than white, too.
Yes, exactly. Yep, they get kind of a buff color.
They do. Would you be able to talk a bit, so this is one from Suzanne, the physical adaptation differences between like polar bears and grizzly bears? Grizzly bears being this terrestrial bear, polar bears being this water bear, like you kind of mentioned. How do you approach drawing those differences? Yeah,
so for me, and you can chime in on this stuff too. For me, polar bears, the difference in my mind, I can do it in a gesture. To me, a polar bear is like that. That to me is a polar bear. You know, it's fluid and it flows and you can see it. And you know, a grizzly bear is more of a chunky kind of animal.
I love that. Yeah.
You know, that's the difference. And those are the terms that I think about when that's where it starts. A polar bear has this fluidity to it. Even when, you know, he's walking across land and you might be looking straight at him, I still thinking those kind of fluid terms. They've got very long necks. Yeah. And they're just very graceful and fluid. Grizzly bears, they're beautiful and they've got their own beauty, but they've got a chunkiness to them and a stockiness to them. You know, their face has more of a dish shape to it, whereas a polar bear has this sleek kind of shape to it. So I think in those terms, I don't get into real specific anatomy, muscles and things like that changes, but I do look at the masses in a different way, and how the masses on a polar bear or the masses on a grizzly bear, how I can shape those masses to support those gestural things that I was just talking about.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I love that. So I think this is your friend Martin Berger.
Hey, Martin Berger. Hey, Martin Berger.
So he's asking a question that maybe I can actually answer.
Yes.
What can humanity do so that we will still have polar bears in 100 or 200 years? And that's such a great question. Thank you. The biggest threat facing polar bears globally is habitat loss. So sea ice loss due to climate change. And that's because our world is warming. We're burning fossil fuels, and those emissions are trapping heat in our atmosphere. We've got this heat trapping blanket around our Earth right now, and it's just not letting that heat escape. The good news is we know that that's the main problem, and we already have the solutions. So if we can switch to cleaner energies more broadly, like solar and wind and geothermal, we can help get rid of that heat trapping blanket, or at least really like thin it out and get some of that heat back into the atmosphere, get us kind of back to a normal climate system, cool our Earth down. And that will be better for polar bears, and it will be better for people. And it's not a black or white scenario. It's not too late. It's the more that we do now, the better we'll be in the future. And there's so much we can do now. And we need clean energy to be more affordable, more accessible. We need to vote for leaders that care about those things. At Polar Bears International, we are very hopeful that we will get to that point because, again, our future is shared. It's not only about the polar bear, it's about the entire Arctic ecosystem, our whole planet, ourselves. And if we all work together, we know we can really make a difference. And out here, I think this is a great example of working together. We're meeting people from all over the world that come to see the polar bears. We bring up special guests. We talk about the science. We talk about the art. And we just want to share these polar bears with you. People protect what they love. And by being able to show you live polar bears and talk about polar bears and why we love them and how we love them, we hope that you'll love them with us and help us protect them. So thank you so much for that question. And I know he's a big fan of yours in your art world.
Martin. We love Martin. Yeah, Martin's been there. And Michelle Wasserman, who you mentioned earlier. Yeah, she's a good friend of ours as well, yes.
Excellent. So we've got also a question from Carling Hatt, which is a grade K2 class in Edmonton. I love Edmonton. Hello. How regularly do you see a polar bear within the city limits of Churchill? Oh, that's a really good question, and it really depends. So it can vary, but at this time of the year, polar bears do walk through Churchill sometimes. Luckily, Churchill has the world's only polar bear alert team. So if anyone's in town in Churchill and they see a polar bear, they can call the polar bear hotline and report it, and the polar bear team will show up and move that bear out of town. But it does happen. One of the best things we can do for polar bears and for bears all across the world is lock up our garbage. So if we don't have attractants, or at least the bears aren't getting rewarded by those attractants, they're much more likely to just continue on their way. They'll follow their nose to whatever smells good. These polar bears want to be out eating seals, but they're still bears and they're hungry. So if they smell something good, they'll check it out. But if they don't get anything out of it, they'll keep moving. So we can keep our waste management systems working well. That's really important for all bears. We also have a question from DRC2. Has Aaron or Nick driven the Tundra buggy yet?
No, we haven't.
Maybe soon. Maybe you'll get a little chance.
Yeah, we were talking about maybe getting a chance to do that. It's pretty intimidating. It's I call it a big land ship. It's because you got to dock it. You got to you don't touch land for a while. It's it's pretty impressive. I gotta say.
Especially this new one. And again, a huge thanks to Frontiers North Adventures, Noble Northern, building this Tundra buggy from the ground up, and with this electric engine has been completely amazing. It is a game changer out here. We've got bunk beds in the back, a kitchen, all these viewing windows up front, a media station just behind the camera that you can't see, but so that we have Albert running the show back there. It really is so amazing. We're so lucky to be here.
Yeah, these guys were stuck with my snoring last night.
No, I don't think you snored at all, actually.
Okay, good.
So we'll throw it back over to you, Aaron. What are you, I see you've been working on these bears. Maybe.
I thought I'd go ahead and put the finish out the polar bear,
Absolutely.
Swimming through the water, trying to get that fluidity, as opposed to the grizzly bear here walking along and being a little more blocky. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, I love it. I love the way you compare those bears.
Yeah,
that is so great. One thing I wanted to ask you, so our viewers can't see this now, but I know they will all see Snow Bear soon. But one of the most beautiful parts of Snow Bear, or such a complimentary part, is the music piece. And how it's another piece of the art. How did you approach building the music for Snow Bear?
I knew right from the beginning that I didn't want to have dialogue in Snow Bear. I wanted to do the film myself, and me being an animator, I wanted to tell the story through acting, through animation. And so not having dialogue, it's great, to try to get that across visually, but it can't stand on its own. You need to have a wonderful score. Even when you do have dialogue, you should have a score and it really supports it. But Snow Bear even more, because it doesn't have that dialogue to fall back on. We really depended on the score to really carry and help magnify the emotion that I'm trying to get across on the screen. So I was very lucky when I worked on Brother Bear to have a wonderful composer by the name of Mark Mancina. And he went on, he did Tarzan, he did Brother Bear, he went on to do Moana, he did Moana 2, he did Sea Beast, he's done so many wonderful films. And so when it came time to start thinking about a composer for Snow Bear, I just figured I'm going to start with the guy that I know that, in my mind, he's the top of the list of composers that I know. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, I'll just start working my way down the list. Well, I got lucky. He liked the film. So I went to Mark. We sent him the storyboard reel. We storyboarded the film before we actually animated it. I cut everything together, and I put together kind of a temporary score from different films, trying to get across the mood of what I was thinking about. And I sent it to Mark, and he said, yeah, he'd love to work on it. So him and Marlon Espino, who is his partner, created the score for us, and it was absolutely wonderful.
It is. It's
and
perfect.
It really does elevate the emotion of the film tenfold. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah, the power of music and art together. It's absolutely a beautiful film. I can't wait for everyone to see it. I know Polar Bears International will keep spreading the love, and particularly when it comes out on video on demand and then streaming everywhere, we'll keep pushing it.
Well, we have loved hanging out with you guys, I'll tell you. Thank you. It's been a wonderful partnership.
Yes, it really has been. And I have to ask, what's next for you? So you will leave us in a few days, which will be very sad. You'll keep promoting Snow Bear.
Yes.
And what's next?
We've got a lot of things coming up. Nick and I have an art education website called creatureartteacher.com where we teach drawing and painting and animation and all kinds of wonderful things. And we're going to continue to do that. We're going to create more courses. We're doing some live events where we're going to be teaching in person. But I really got the bug after I finished making Snow Bear to make more films. And so we're trying to get more films off the ground. We've got some short ideas that we're working on. We've got a feature-length film, a prequel to Snow Bear called Polar that we're working on, that we're trying to get off the ground. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire that we're working on, so stay tuned. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, that's so great. And again, that's creatureartteacher.com for anyone that wants to learn more about what Aaron does, learn more about drawing, animation. It's a really incredible website. And we got to see, I mean, you have a huge following. We got to see a bit of that yesterday.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. I'm very, very lucky. And thank you guys, because, you guys have supported us so much over the years. And I love sharing this stuff with you, and the loyalty you guys have shown by following us along and really joining us on every single journey we've done. It really moves me, and it makes me happy, and it humbles me, and I want to thank you so much. So many of them, when we made Snow Bear, we live streamed the making, as we made it. And so for 2.5 years, as I made Snow Bear, so many of the folks watching right now were right there with us twice a week, watching me animate, paint backgrounds, color shots, doing whatever. And they're now watching us here in the Arctic. So it's been a really fun cycle.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
And when people do get a chance to see Snow Bear, what do you hope that they take away from it?
I want them to be moved. I want them to be entertained. I want them to feel a little better coming out of it than when they went in. It's only an 11-minute film. It is what it is. It's a short film. But I hope that I've packed enough in that 11 minutes that you're going to feel something and you're going to enjoy it. I want people to laugh, to cry, to feel inspired, to want to maybe be involved a little bit in what you do and the plight of polar bears and the plight of the planet in general. So that's what I hope. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I do think people will take that away, and by working together, we'll amplify that message even more.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you all for being with us today and joining this little drawing lesson. We have another event tomorrow with Aaron, and we're just out here on the Tundra for the next couple days, watching bears, watching Aaron sketch bears.
Yes, I can't wait to do more.
Yes, and we know there will be more polar bears. We've had this sleeping polar bear just outside Tundra Buggy 1 here for a little while. He needs a big rest. He's been sparring.
I was going to say, these bears right here, the ones he's one of these bears right there. So they're kind of tired out. The other one that was there with him is off in the bush just a little bit behind him.
Yeah,
sleeping.
No doubt they'll come together again. And keep an eye out also for those moms and cubs. And thank you, Aaron, for I'm genuinely gonna think about polar bears differently when I watch them now. Both the rigid and flexible, and then the mom and cub and those face proportions.
I'm completely flabbergasted, because I didn't think I could teach you anything more about polar bears.
Oh my goodness, so. I have so much more to learn. They're such an amazing animal. Oh, thank you. This was just really great. And a reminder to everyone, it is Polar Bear Week, so check out social media, check out polarbearsinternational.org, explore.org, and again, a huge thanks to explore.org for having these cameras across the Tundra. We do have this one on the EV, Tundra Buggy 1. There are also 2 cameras on the Frontiers North Adventure Lodge, where we got to eat dinner last night. We're docking up. We're going to go visit the lodge again tonight. And then there are 2 more cameras out at Cape Churchill. And this is such an amazing time of year.
Before you sign off, can I mention something really quick about explore.org and their cameras?
Oh, yeah.
I use them to draw from. It's a really wonderful way of, if you can't be there, you can tune in, you can see the animals in real time and sketch and watch. I've done it with the Brooks Falls up in Alaska in Katmai, and we've done it here watching you guys. I've sat and drawn the polar bear. So it's a really cool art resource for those that haven't really thought about that.
There you go. Just
Yeah.
another reason to love the explore.org cameras.
Yes.
Yeah, great way to watch wildlife, fall in love with wildlife, and see the bears if you can't be here in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, huge shout out to them. And if you are watching the cams, remember there's that fun kind of journey game this week that Explore did for Polar Bear Week. So take snapshots. You can win a prize, enter a draw. It's a lot of fun. And also a reminder to send us your art. You can email us at hello@pbears.org or questions@pbears.org. We already have some amazing pieces that we are excited to share with you. So thank you for those. And we hope we will continue to see you out on the Tundra. Again, thanks to our partners. Thanks to Aaron. Thanks to Nick.
Thank you.
His business partner. We're working with Discovery Education this week, pushing out wonderful educational stuff. So thanks to them as a wonderful educational partner. And thanks to you all for watching and for loving the polar bears with us. So we're going to head back out there, go look for more bears, and we'll see you on the Tundra soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, you guys.
Future generations of people and polar bears depend on the decisions and plans that we make today. A polar bear's life cycle is almost exclusively tied to the sea ice. Because polar bears rely on sea ice to hunt, to breed, and sometimes to den, sea ice loss from climate change is their biggest threat, and the reason the bears are listed as vulnerable on the IUCN's Red List of Threatened Species. What we learn about climate change impacts on polar bears in Hudson Bay can be applied across the Arctic to help conserve other populations. Climate change is already affecting some populations of polar bears. Since we get most of our energy from fossil fuels, we are producing huge amounts of carbon dioxide. You see, regular amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere act like a blanket around the Earth, trapping heat and keeping our planet at a stable temperature. However, when we burn fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas for energy, we pump rampant amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This buildup thickens the blanket, trapping too much heat, disrupting the climate, and melting Arctic sea ice. When Arctic waters are cold enough, the top layer freezes into a special type of ice called sea ice. Sea ice is to the ocean what soil is to a forest. It supports the entire Arctic food chain. Food from this marine ecosystem also sustains northern communities. The key to getting the climate back to functioning the way it should, and to preserving a future for polar bears across the Arctic, is to move away from using fossil fuels for energy altogether. The most important thing we can do is vote with the climate in mind to let our leaders know we support a swift transition to renewable energy sources. In the meantime, we can directly participate in and learn more about our local and regional renewable energy options. We can all make a difference outside our own households by influencing where our energy comes from. Because together, we can make sure that polar bears roam the Arctic sea ice for generations to come.